Ladies and gentlemen, Gungans and droids across our beloved empire, it's great to be in the Empire today, and I want to welcome you guys to our initial thoughts, impressions review of the MG-100 SF-29 360 degree around the world no scope mom grab the camera resistance bomber. Is this the spark to the resistance that they've needed? We're making good progress in Galaxy Earth, adding more ships in this year of 2022. But how much of a difference is the resistance getting, especially with right now Galactic Chase events going? How far should you push Galactic Chase to get this ship up and running? Let's go on over, show you some gameplay of 2, 3, 5, as well as 7-star gameplay to kind of show you the difference that we're experiencing. And this is very important because being a tank, you want to be able to soak up the hits as much as possible. And that's one of the downsides of tanks. They usually don't succeed, excel at low stars, but they can maybe get some work done. And I have about 3 or 4 expectations, and I will tell you whether or not my expectations were met or whether we got to dig a little bit deeper and see if there's maybe some work, some improvement that this fleet can offer. Larry, Gary, can we roll some gameplay? There we go. All right, so we're gonna start with some 2-star gameplay of the ship. I mean, I don't know if many people would be surprised, but at 2 stars, it definitely falls apart very, very quickly. This ship has the potential to be incredibly durable with its stats that it's provided, and with Holdo's fleet, it amplifies the survivability of the ship even more. Well, at 2 stars, if you go up against Malevolences, it can crumble very quickly once the buzz droids start getting applied. Against Negotiator, usually an opening bombardment AoE mass swarm from Negotiator can kill it off pretty quickly, but maybe sometimes that's strategic. Even at low stars, if you can have just that ship eat up all the hits so the rest of the resistance can stay alive, that's a strategic element that could be beneficial to you guys. And on that note, what have we found so far with this ship? Is this ship turning the Holdo's fleet into a top level fleet? No. Executor, I don't think they're going to be sweating too much. But what we can accomplish right now is at least kind of sometimes take out Negotiator lives. It's a bit finicky, a little bit RNG dependency. You could take out Malevolences if the resistance bomber is a bit higher star. But what I think, and it's a weird expectation, I think this fleet actually might be nice as an alternative option on the table to clean up Executors. As we know, the game's in a weird spot where the Executor does not have 100% counter against even mirror matches. Can be a bit annoying, but Malevolence versus the Executor are usually a bit RNG dependent. It's like playing Yahtzee, and you know, usually I want to say 60% of the time you got to clean it up with something. I think this fleet might be able to clean up a potential Executor. As long as you took out Xanadu Blood or maybe the Razor Crest, you might be in a good situation to clean up so you don't have to waste Rebels, which is the far superior fleet over even, yes, this new addition to the Resistance lineup fleet, or even your Finalizer. Your Finalizer is sometimes very important to take out Negotiator lineups out there. So I'm seeing this being helpful to clean up Executors, and we were able to take out, for example, a 4-star Executor with the less than ideal lineup. So I think there's hope in that regard. It's a weird expectation. We're going to kind of talk about that later on, why we should maybe be happy with something like that in the current meta landscape that we have here. Let's talk a little bit about the kit overall now that you're seeing some gameplay and kind of what it seems to be doing well with. I want to just highlight what I'm kind of disappointed when we heard, or even when we were speculating, the obvious need of a new fleet or new ships to be added to the Resistance fleet. The one thing that was pretty much on everyone's mind is a way to make Holdo's maneuver go faster. And unfortunately, that's not going to be the case with this fleet. Unfortunately, it is designed so Foresight does not stick on it. You can give him 1 million Foresights, but it will quickly dispel it by himself and then just throw on a critical hit immunity instead, which of course, yes, has a strategic element to it, so you don't take those big hits from Rebels, for example, or from the Negotiator, Jedi Knight Anakin type of lineups out there. But the fact of the matter is, if you can't keep Foresight on this ship, when you're spamming special abilities, you are not reducing the cooldowns of Holdo's maneuvers. So 2 things to pull out of this. 1, if this is a starting ship in your lineup, opening lineup, you're probably actually worse off with getting the Holdo's maneuver to go out faster, because before you would probably start off with 3 resistance ships and you have 3 ships reducing cooldowns. Well, now if you start off with the Starfortress and 2 other resistance ships, well, now you only got 2 ships out the get-go, reducing the cooldowns of Holdo's maneuver. So in that aspect, it's actually making Holdo's fleet a bit worse, because the main core of the Holdo fleet is to quickly get to the Holdo maneuver and obliterate your opponent. That's the downside of it. Now, we might be able to make this ship work in the reinforcements. The downside of that is, now, unless you have some other tank opening up like Houndstooth, which if you're using Houndstooth with Resistance, you probably aren't using it with Negotiator or Malevolence or the Executor, the prime use out of the Houndstooth. Usually your Resistance just eats up the AoE and someone dies anyways out the get-go from the Negotiator, for example. So you're kind of left in a little bit of a catch-22 situation here. There's a few things I do like about this ship. The durability is nice. As I mentioned, the durability can get even higher with the addition of Radis's leadership here. With the Stay the Course, the leadership ability for the Resistance fleet, you're going to get extra damage, but you're getting an extra 75% max protection, which is pretty substantial. Now, to put it in perspective, right now, in this gameplay you're seeing, we had our 5-star Rose Tico, 5-star Resistance Trooper. I didn't want to quite take it to Relic 7 because I don't know if people are going to want to take this fleet that far. The main goal of this ship is to at least give you an extra added benefit to invest against some of the less than ideal characters that you needed to go after Galactic Legends race. So I kept my characters at Relic 5 in this gameplay. We threw on some 6-dot mods for testing. Remember, 6-dot mods are important for amplifying the ship's stats as well as their speeds, a very convoluted ship process. So we kept it there, and where we're at right now, we're sitting at currently 43,674 protection. Now, if you max these ships out to Relic 9 on the Resistance Trooper and Relic 9 Rose Tico, you can get it to 50,000. I don't know if that's going to be a very practical thing. Relic 5, we're keeping it there with that extra 75% max protection boost. It's very nice to get it going, to take up a lot more hits, and you do see a more meaningful benefit as you increase the star count on the ships, and it started feeling like it was being a bit more meaningful around 5 stars. It was able to eat up more hits than at 3 stars, for example. Another added benefit, since it's self-dispelling, the foresight on this ship, it's going to quickly gain the evasion up and extra protection up through that holdo Stay the Course lead for 20 with a 20% protection up boost and for 2 turns as well. So when it does get foresight, it gets rid of it, gets the critical hit immunity, gets evasion up, and then it gets extra protection. So you're going to be amplifying the durability of this ship even more. So on paper, the biggest highlight is when this ship does taunt, and you got it at a decent relic level and a decent star level, it will eat up some hits, which is nice. And I did find the thing I'm hoping for is that we might be able to fine-tune this to be a more consistent way of taking out Negotiator. You're right now seeing about 6 out of 10 times they're beating Negotiator, and it really hinges on Poe knocking Jedi Anakin into the deep yellow. So instead of the AoE mass day swarm that Negotiator spamming out there, you can instead eat up that unending loyalty instead. And when that happens, I feel very confident we're going to win. So that's a bit more RNG dependent with Poe. But in this situation, you do got to eat up that days. If it's at least at 5 stars, it's eating up the days and it's doing its job. So that's the one nice thing I do like about this ship. The rest of it, it's kind of hard to appreciate, but there is one other thing I do want to mention. But before we get to that, let's talk about some other things. Buff Dispel is nice. It does get the evaded on begin the drop sequence, but it has been helpful. For example, to dispel a boss taunt, work your way around, or dispel the Y-Wing taunt, work your way around. A Buff Dispel is something this fleet did need. It's nice seeing that being added as well, and it's got some turn removal, which can be helpful. We'll talk about Sweet Spot later. I feel like Sweet Spot, it's a bit hit or miss for the most part. Health regeneration. Health regeneration is nice, and it's one way of getting this ship to taunt. I was hoping this would have at least a little bit more protection regeneration. It doesn't quite yet, but it also has a mass swarm, which you can definitely feel that huge 50% damage penalty. The mass swarm, unless you got 5 stacks of Sweet Spot on the enemy, which we'll talk about again, it feels like you're tickling the opposing ship still. So we're kind of missing a couple more things in this fleet, but the mass swarm's nice, health generation's nice, and the active and being able to turn on a taunt is nice as well. I did actually quite like the basic. Gunners, look alive! The basic ability here. This ship likes to counterattack a lot. And if it's attacking an enemy with target lock, and they have 5 stacks of the Sweet Spot, it's recovering protection. So although the special ability, Tico's sister Lexi, does recover protection, kind of reminds me a little bit of the Rebel Y-Wing, where when the Rebel Y-Wing is using attacks, they can kind of top up on protection. Granted, it's only for this ship and not for the entire fleet, but it's one way, again, keeping this ship alive as much as possible. And the unique ability here, which we kind of emphasize, the one thing I don't like is the fact that it clears away the foresight on it. It's a little bit unfortunate, but it is nice. If you are going to start off with this ship, it's pretty much guaranteed to be immune to critical hits, so it can eat up the opening swarms from Negotiator, or even Rebels. If Rebels try to blitz it down, it might be a bit tricky to blitz down this particular ship, especially when it's got the protection up, it's got the deflector shield going on. It might be a little bit of work for one of those fleets to knock this ship down. And of course, if an ally, a resistance ally with the deflector shield gets hit with damage, it's going to taunt. So it's got a nice reactive taunt. So let's say with the Rebels, you want to blitz down Poe, you want to blitz down Ray's Millennium Falcon. Well, it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle because you need to be able to get this ship down, or else it's just going to keep taunting over and over and over again. So what am I feeling about this ship? Is it the most stellar thing of this year? No. I'd be beyond surprised this can one-shot Executor. I wouldn't be too surprised if down the road we find a way to make it more consistent to one-shot Negotiators, and this leads into the problem. The main issue with this ship is more of a game issue at large. Let me give you an example. When Mandalorians started becoming a thing last year, they weren't stellar. They weren't amazing. They didn't have a place in the meta because why? The Grand Arena meta was a bit narrow. But eventually, when the Grand Arena meta got expanded, we needed more defensive teams, and as a result, needed more offensive teams. That meta widened. And all of a sudden, the Mandalorians are fitting inside of this bracket. Yeah, they're still not top tier, but they're kind of helpful to maybe weed off some low-hanging fruit defensive teams. The problem with ships is they aren't afforded that type of meta. The meta, if we thought the character meta was pretty narrow before all the Grand Arena changes, this is the ship meta. It really is just Executor and Negotiators and Malevolences. 3 fleets. And then, of course, you got things like the Finalizer and things like the Rebels, which have been able to make work happen before all the crazy stuff with the Starfortress being added and these other new tanks, such as the TIE Echelon. The problem is it's hard to appreciate a new ship when the meta is this narrow. So the problem that I'm having is that I'm having a hard time seeing what's the grand purpose of this ship. For me, so far, as I mentioned, I think it might be a good ship. The 2-shot, an Executor. Once you get out the Xander Blood, I can see this ship eating up hits and being a good taunting tank while you're working your way through his 2-shot, saving you again, as we mentioned, your Finalizer, your Resistance, or even Negotiator if you save Negotiator for the offensive here. So that's kind of what I'm seeing as the prime thing. Might get to a situation where Negotiator is the second most popular defensive fleet we're seeing out there. I see 9 out of 10 times on defense. I could see this if we could try to find our way to make it more consistent so they don't open up with the AoE mass swarm days from Kenobi. I can see this being nice for the Negotiator. The problem is, though, we have a lot of other one-shot Negotiator counters. Finalizer, Rebels, of course, Negotiator mirror matches. Those could be a little mess, but still, nonetheless, we got plenty of stuff. So that's why it's kind of doesn't have quite the right spot in Galaxy of Heroes right now to be a bit more meaningful. So overall, the way I'm seeing this ship is it's mainly meant to try to bring the Resistance back to where it kind of was before Houndstooth got rudely taken away to the Executor line. Because keep in mind, before the Resistance with the Bounty Hunters and Boss, they were able to counter, for example, the Malevolence very consistently. Well, after the Bounty Hunters and Houndstooth got pulled away, the Resistance wasn't really great for countering Malevolences and Negotiators. So it became kind of a fleet that you use after you kind of dove into the other fleets out there. This, at least, like, I fundamentally think I can use this to maybe 2-shot an Executor, but we have to wait and see when Grand Arena comes around. That's more speculation, but kind of seeing what happens after you play the Executor Yahtzee. You usually got one ship out. That's usually Cad Bane, hopefully. This should be able to help you make your way through that 2-shot here. Overall, is this a ship that you should be getting to 7 stars? I don't think there's an immediate need to. At least right now, unless they do something to expand ships to make the Resistance a bit more important in the fleet meta by widening that meta gap. I don't quite see this being an important thing for people to get in the foreseeable future, but it's meant to help make you feel a bit better about going after Rey and making that Rose Tico Resistance Trooper investment a little bit more meaningful. I don't see this transforming the meta, especially when right now it's only focusing on the top 3 ships inside of Galaxiers. And if you're someone that only has one fleet, and that's the Resistance fleet, this will be helpful. So if you can maybe get this ship to 5 stars, I can see you getting use out of it. 3 stars, 2 stars, it's going to be a bit of a challenging grind, but, you know, if it can eat up 1 swarm attack, it's going to be nice. And, of course, at 7 stars, when you get it up and running, it's going to do a lot more for you. But right now, I never recommend people to spend $300+ on a ship or character. But just for the sake of the argument, if you are someone that tends to spend money once in a while, you only can buy, let's say, 1 thing a year, this ain't it, Chief. This ain't the thing to buy. We'll see what happens. It's not the most stellar thing, but not every single thing in Galaxiers has to be stellar. But I like that we're making the progress towards filling out the fleets, because it's crazy to think that we might have a Darth Nihilus Ravager sometime down the road. We're waiting for that part of the leak to come true. And we're in a game right now where we don't need more capital ships. We need more ships, and although this is not going to be the full picture for the Resistance, it's not going to be the complete picture. It's at least getting us to a point where the Resistance can be a bit more usable. But I am excited for the TIE Echelon because unlike the Resistance, the Finalizer didn't really get picked apart when the Executor rolled on into town. So let me know what you guys think down below. Leave that like, comment down below, subscribe. We'll catch you later very soon in the near future. But until then, always remember, it's great to be in the Empire today.